Hello and welcome to this special edition of Community Connections titled Local Legends, where we are honoring and want to learn from extraordinary people who have transformed systems and connected thousands of people to life-sustaining resources over the course of their career. So today I have with me former Councilwoman Blondell Reynolds-Brown. Councilwoman Reynolds-Brown has dedicated her life to Philadelphia residents by putting people first. As an educator, community activist, political leader, and concerned parent, her focus and commitment to helping others defined her work prior to her election to Philadelphia City Council. After graduating from the Philadelphia High School for Girls, Reynolds-Brown earned a bachelor's degree in elementary education and a Master of Science in Education, both from Penn State University. She bleeds blue and white. She started her career in the classroom as a teacher with the School District of Philadelphia. Reynolds-Brown then began a career as a professional dancer, ultimately earning a place as a company member of the Philadelphia Dance Company, affectionately known as Philadanco. Following her company membership, she continued her affiliation with Philadanco, becoming a dance instructor and later a board member for 20 years. Councilmember Reynolds-Brown has passed meaningful legislation and supported valuable community programming that positively impacts her core issues: children and youth, women, arts and culture, education, small business development, and the environment and sustainability. So, welcome, Councilwoman Reynolds-Brown. Thank you so much for being on this show.
And thank you for allowing me to be included in the company of your former guests, John White Jr. and Estelle Richmond. Thank you for the opportunity.
It's an honor to have all of you. So, Councilwoman Brown, let's start talking about a couple of things that you have recently going on in your work post your city council term. Can you talk a little bit about the things you're working on today?
I'd be happy to. Two things. One, all of in 2020, when the world had shut down, and all of us had to either figure out what we wanted to be when we grow up, or
Mhm.
figure out what we were going to do in that next what grew to be 36 months. I decided to pursue a dream I've had since I came out of graduate school, and
Okay.
that was to write children's books. So I'm pulling
Mm.
out all of these dozens of children's books that I never gave away. My daughter was awestruck. A, that I had them all, and B, that I still had them all. So I
Mhm.
shared with her, I reminded her of my interest to write the series, The Amazing Adventures of Autumn, my daughter's middle name, to which my daughter looked at me with some trepidation or surprise. And
Mhm.
she said, Mommy, you have, you have a story to tell. You should write your
Mhm.
story. And
Mhm.
so I heeded her advice, and she knew of my story. Decided to that summer pulled out 10, 15 boxes of files that I'd maintained from my work in Philadelphia City Council, and began to write my story about my 20 years, uh, both the highs and the lows, the good, the bad, and the ugly, serving as the only African American female at large member for 16 of those 20 years. And the
Wow.
title of this now published book is Walking on a Tightrope Backward in High Heels.
That aptly says it. That aptly says it, being the only woman for so long in that position at large. I didn't know. I didn't realize that you were the only woman there that long. Can you talk a little bit about what led you to public service and electoral politics?
Terrific question. As my resume shows, in the early part of my career, I was in the classroom,
Mhm.
loved any and everything about children. I'm a third generation teacher, and
Okay.
that's really all I ever knew. My life was filled with teachers and my mother and grandmother, but my life was also filled with wonderful teachers that I had in my own educational training. And
Mhm.
so I fulfilled that dream. But in 3 years, 4 years, became very, 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 very impatient
Mm.
and ambitious, and decided I wanted to be a principal, to which I
Mhm.
learned it doesn't work that way. You have to earn your stripes for many more years before you can become a principal. And
Mhm.
so, given my impatience and my ambition, I left the classroom and began to build my career in the nonprofit youth development community. On the way, of learning what that world is, having worked for several nonprofits, including the Urban League of Philadelphia, Philadelphia OIC, where I really cut my teeth on program development. I watched the 1984 Democratic National Convention on TV, and I was absolutely awestruck by the audacity of citizens from around the country who thought they could convene in a place and elect the next president. And that happened in alignment with graffiti was being sprayed on my block in Mantua. That made me very unhappy. In fact, graffiti was being sprayed on the piece of dirt I just bought. And so I learned that you could become a block captain, and learned later, after being a conscientious block captain, that they have in ward structures of the city committee people. And committee people are your boots on the ground, individuals who are paying attention to what's happening on your block, around the corner, and seek to help seniors and citizens navigate the layers of government to address those needs. Because of my work in that area, I was recruited, believe it or not, by the then state representative, Shaka Fatah. And I volunteered and did fundraisers for a gazillion folk. The first check I ever wrote, the first fundraising contribution I ever wrote, was for John White Jr. when he was running for state rep, just to show you how small the world is. Yeah. And so fast forward, I wasn't a volunteer, but I was a great volunteer. And when you're a great volunteer, word travels. It led me to it led me to an opportunity to work in Harrisburg as a legislative aide for now State Senator Fatah. The picture in Harrisburg was the following: 50 state senators, 2 were African American, Senator Fatah and Senator Williams. Each state senator has what is called a legislative aide. Okay. There were no Black legislative aides of the 50 state senators, not uno. And so I learned later that Senator Fatah actually left the position open until he could find a legislative director that was African American, that being me. So one day I'm leaving a committee hearing, education committee, by the way, and I walked into his office and I made the observation, Senator, there are never ever any other Black legislative aides at the table. And how is that? How can that be, given Philadelphia and Pittsburgh? And he stopped me in my tracks and he said, Blondell, don't complain about it, be about it. And that planted a seed for me to think, if you really want to affect change, be about change, change the corner of the world you occupy, you can't do it from the sidelines. You have to get in the ring. So after serving as a volunteer in a gazillion campaigns, from Mayor Good, from W. Wilson Good for mayor, to Congressman Bill Gray for U.S. Congress, to Marion Tasker for city commissioner, I threw my hat in the ring in 1995 to run for councilwoman at large. And I lost. I lost by 1.6 vote per division. So when they say every vote counts, every vote counts. I lost by less than 2 votes per division. So I took my, licked my wounds, became a mother, and 4 years later ran again for the second time with my 3-year-old daughter on my hip. Wow. And built a solid team, raised enough money, had the support of women's organizations and labor and others. Did not have the support of the Democratic Party. That was okay. But the second time around, I won. I came in third in year 2000, January 2000, and walked into Philadelphia City Council with my 3-year-old on my hip. And let me add, I was the only woman there with a child in elementary school. Now today, when I left City Council, you had 3 women who had children in elementary school. So I would like to say I made it acceptable and okay that we can walk the tightrope, honoring our ambition while we seek to be a helicopter mom and an attentive wife.
So you were a trailblazer. You were a trailblazer, and you set the path for all of the other women that are in City Council today. And I think that that's amazing, and I appreciate you sharing that. I did not know that. So I
thank you. Thank you.
Extraordinary.
It showed others what's possible. It really is about seeing what's possible. But then we have to be prepared to do the work to make those dreams come true. It doesn't happen by osmosis. It does
Right.
come with work and effort and work and effort.
So on that note, one of the things that I find about the folks that I have had the opportunity to interview, like you, who are local legends, is you have
Mm.
figured out how to be effective.
Mm.
There was an interview I saw with President Barack Obama, and he said, if you could learn something, just learn how to get things done.
Yes.
Be a person that can get things done. So you've done that. Can you talk a little bit about what that looks like for you? What has made you
Yeah.
effective? What are some of the ingredients to your success, if you will?
Mm. I really appreciate that question. It calls for reflection.
Yeah.
And I think it starts first with a set of values.
Mm,
Got to have some foundational values
mhm,
and a set of philosophies that guide or help you build the ingredients required to be effective.
yeah.
And one of my values, so many of my values I learned from my mother. One of them is if you're going to do something, do it now, but do it well.
Mm,
Always approach task, activities, effort with a sense of excellence. My
mm,
mother used to say to all of us, good, better, best.
mhm,
Never let it rest
mm,
until your good is better and your better best.
mm,
So first, there has to be a commitment to doing a job well done,
mhm,
right? First, there has to be a commitment to making sure that your fingerprint, your handprint speaks of excellence. That's number one. Number two, no excuses.
mm,
Excuses are the tools of incompetence, and those who use them build castles to nowhere.
mm,
Period. We can Excuses get in the way. I don't like giving excuses, and I actually don't like hearing excuses. Now, sometimes we have to have an explanation as to why we fell short of achieving a mark, but let's not walk through the door with excuses. They is an empty waste of time, and that's a foundational value before we get to actual ingredients. The other is that you really just have to like people. It takes all kind of people to make the world go around. Folks
mm,
come with their perspective, their experience, their lens, their vision, and there
mm,
has to be a willingness when you're at the table with others to find the common ground. There's a terrific book called Getting to Yes that
mhm,
Senator Hughes gave me, and a book that I reread multiple times when I was in city council, when I found myself approaching a piece of legislation and I had to get un in different minds, different perspectives at the table to find that yes, that little sliver where there was
mhm,
common ground.
mm,
So one of those ingredients also is learning the skills, practicing the skills that move you to getting things done. And that too doesn't happen by osmosis. If you're academic, you got to learn what those skills are. You have to be in experiences that are going to show you how to practice those skills. And then they help you build the ingredients to getting things done. So, what are
mm,
some of those ingredients? Begin with the end in mind.
mhm,
Let your listeners or your participants know what the goal is
mhm,
so that everybody has an understanding or a vision of where we need to get to. The other
mhm,
thing is that you got to be a planner. Prior, proper planning will always prevent a poor performance.
mm,
Number three, if it's not in writing, it doesn't exist.
mhm, mhm,
My staff knew that that's the way I operated. I I still take notes when I go into meetings today.
sure.
And writing things down for me, because I did not have a telegraphic memory, a photogenic memory like a Senator Fatah. I used to always write my notes, and we would walk into a meeting the next day, and he would just, regurgitate what we talked about, never having written a note. So one day I said to him, Senator, help me understand how you're able to capture what happened in the meeting last week. And he said, I'll tell you a secret. I have a photogenic memory. Well,
Wow.
Blondell was impressed with that. So I write things down. I still keep journals today. I have a journal for city council, a journal for the marketing of my book, a journal for the people I'm meeting with about my book, because it helps me stay on time and on task.
Mhm,
Okay. So willingness to write things down, what the right plans, have written plans, helps us get things done. And
mhm,
then we have to build teams who philosophically agree that we are all pulling in the same direction. Kellen White, John White's son, used to say, teamwork makes the dream work. Isn't that a wonderful expression? And so building a team, recruiting a team, well, first of all, identifying team members, recruiting them, and then engaging them in a way that helps them manifest their strengths is an important ingredient in moving to get things done. Repetition breeds learning. Many times, members of our team, we have to repeat over and over and over again because we all need to be reminded of what our mission is. So back to your question, some philosophical values and underpinnings are foundational for getting things done. And then certain skill sets are required to get things done. And then tangible, actionable, measurable steps are important to get things done.
So in listening to you, and I'm taking notes as you're talking, because I appreciate what you're saying. And some of the things that I feel like I heard back from you are things that people can do right from where they are right now, right? Like the things that you've talked about have been leadership, values, coalition building.
Yes.
Making sure that everyone is clear on the larger picture and the vision, doing what you say you're going to do, right? And then some of the really practical tools like writing things down so that from a project management perspective, you're not missing anything. And I wanted to just regurgitate that because I think,
Yes.
Someone looking at you might not feel as though they'll ever be a councilwoman one day, and maybe these things are something that you have their skills that, are for some reason odd or unique to you, but they are not
No.
necessarily odd or unique. They are just really practical skills that you can be a leader
Absolutely.
in your life, right?
And there's so many books there. In my book, Walking a Tightrope Backwards, I actually Googled the time at the period I was writing that chapter to find out how many books there are on leadership.
Okay.
There are a gazillion books on leadership, and there are different types of leadership. And so part of our professional growth and development is a commitment that we want to grow professionally, right? And engaging in those activities that are going to sharpen and nurture our skills so that we can get things done. One of them is reading and participating in experiences that are going to arm us and rearm us even after we graduate from grad or undergraduate school. So another one of those philosophical underpinnings, I believe, has to be that we're willing to be a lifelong learner. We're always ready to be what's that word, malleable and sharpening the skills needed if we want to indeed be successful for what that is and for what it looks like. And there's definitely different things to different people, but here's what we know for sure. Doesn't happen overnight. It's building one block at a time. It's doing the follow through with the blocks that you build, and it's treating people the way you want to be treated every single step of the way. You know why? Because karma is a patient gangster. Did you hear what I said?
I love that.
What goes around comes around. My mother would say, treat people the way you want to be treated. I read in somebody's book, karma is a patient gangster.
That is hilarious. I love that. I love that.
It's also true.
Oh my goodness, that's so funny. I'm writing that one down too.
You don't know when the karma is going to show up. So you want to be sure that when you run into that person again, whatever that ending was, it's one where you can now look in that person's face and say, how are you? How you doing?
Yeah.
Right?
Right. Treat people right and it comes back to you. Yeah. So just thinking about your long career and the variety of work you've done as well. Can you talk a little bit perhaps about some of your accomplishments, your professional accomplishments that you're really proud of and why?
Yes. Well, I praise God and still thank God every day that my life was touched by Joe Myers-Brown. I came home from Penn State, and all I ever wanted to do when I grew up was be a dancer. But I couldn't afford ballet lessons as a elementary, middle school, high school student. I couldn't take classes really until I went to Penn State. So short story, I came back home and a girlfriend of mine who knew I always wanted to dance said, you need to go to the Philadelphia School of Dance Arts. And so I did. And while in those dance classes, because now I can't afford to pay for my dance classes, Joe Myers-Brown suggested that I audition for the Philadelphia Dance Company. And
Okay.
so I did. And she gave me a chance to dance professionally. Well, I was
Oh,
never strong enough to be a soloist. I was
okay.
happy to be in the chorus. I just wanted to be on stage. And so that's such an accomplishment because I was 25 years old, very late for a dancer,
Okay.
and took that little bit of training I gathered and became part of a big fabulous Broadway show in Atlantic City because the casinos were very big at that time and they were building Vegas type shows. So I got a chance to live my dream as a dancer. And I'm just eternally grateful for Joan Myers-Brown for giving me a chance. She saw my earnestness. I was in the studio 7 days a week, even when I didn't have to be there, because I just wanted the chance to perform on stage. So I'm eternally grateful to her. Every chance I get to lift her up and thank her, I do. So that's an accomplishment that I'm thrilled about,
Mm-hmm.
because the other part is when the body can no longer perform, what do? You teach. I
Mm-hmm.
taught all the way up until I ran for office. That's an
Wow.
accomplishment that still makes my heart very, 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 very happy. The other is to be a mom where I got it right. And so that's relative as well. But I used my teaching skills, and I was a helicopter mom. I say that unapologetically.
Mm-hmm.
And I understood that exposing not just my daughter, but children to all kinds of experiences helps to frame and shape where they may end up as adults.
Mm-hmm.
And one contributing factor, I believe, to my daughter being a great writer now is, by the way, I still have all of my daughter's writing since age 3. I have all of her papers, all of her essays, all of her college documents. Whenever she was disobedient, you know what I had her do? I had to
Well,
sit down at the table and write
mm,
why she did what she did, and what's the lesson learned.
mm, mm,
Write out. Tell mommy what you did wrong and tell mommy how you're going to do better. From age 3. So, the little stories from age 3 to the stories at 16 are very different,
mm-hmm.
but they all matter because they contributed to her becoming not a good writer, but a great writer. She's been published
Mm,
twice now in the law review, right? So
wow.
that's I really take great pride in that because with my faith and anchoring her in Sunday school early on, I've been blessed with a spiritually grounded, smart, um, someone who loves the arts, and someone who's a good person who works hard. She understands that work, the only place where success comes before work is in a dictionary, and
Mhm.
she's a good person. So for me, that's an accomplishment.
Like,
And
absolutely.
then a number of accomplishments in Philadelphia City Council, both on the legislative side and on the mentoring and coaching side. I
Wow.
have lots. I'll speak to 2 if that's okay.
Please.
All right. On the legislative side, I because I'm always one that had to worry about my weight. I wasn't born. My metabolism is not one where I could, be a 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, or 10, right? So I've always had to be conscientious about my weight. Number one, but number two, around 2012, the National Institutes of Health produced a report saying that obesity was on the rise, and in the African American community amongst children, it was a crisis. And
Mm,
so, reading that study, for
mhm,
me as a legislative, I was always looking for opportunities that could impact the lives of children and youth. I
mhm,
learned in my research that Seattle, Washington had passed what is called a menu labeling bill, where information like calories, sugar,
mhm,
carbohydrates, salt is on the menu. And what my research told me was when consumers have the information, we make different nutritional decisions.
right,
Facts.
right, right.
So, short story, it took me 2 years to get to 12 votes to have that legislation pass. The
Wow.
lobbyists came out of the woodwork, speaking and lobbying my colleagues not to support that bill because they
Mm,
thought it would impact the local restaurant community. And all the data said was, you only have to change your menus one time, change them one time. They were looking at the bottom line, understood. But
mhm,
if we are serious about impacting the health of consumers who walk through Capitol Grill and Starbucks and Wawa, then
mhm,
this nutritional information at the end of the day will be harmless. It took me It took me 2 years to convince 12 of my colleagues that this was a good thing to do. And so today, when you go in Starbucks and Wawa and Capitol Grill and any other chain restaurant that has 10 or more locations, you have nutritional information. That was my bill. One of my most proudest accomplishments, because it's something that residents, that citizens can connect. You can see it. You can see it, and you think it happens by osmosis, or it happens because restaurateurs think it was a good thing to do. Not. They were required to do that by law. So that was my bill. Then we passed a lot of legislation to protect children from lead, because again, data and research was telling us by zip code that lead was killing our children in the city, and it took us 2 to 5 years to get lead bills completed. But I will say to you, we developed allies. Even with our opponents, we became allies, because once we helped them understand the health benefit of lead, then we had to figure out how we could find the middle ground to not harm the landlords, but protect our children. And we found a middle ground to do that. And now when you go to get a license as a landlord for rental properties, you have to prove that there's no lead in your building. That was a result of our work.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And a lot of people watching this will certainly be able to say the same thing I'm going to say, which is thank you about the calories and the nutritional.
Yes.
Because I really do look at that, and I really do make
We
different.
pay attention, don't we?
Absolutely do. I absolutely do. And I feel differently. Like I know if I've eaten too much salt, how
shows.
I'm
It's
like,
going to be
I'm not
revealed.
gonna eat that. Yep.
It's
No,
going to be
I make
revealed.
decisions. Yes.
It's going to be revealed. And so I will say to you, and I can say this out loud, that former Mayor Kinney and my colleague Frank DeChico were a no vote, right? Well, once they saw it on the menus, they came back to me later and said, Blondell, that wasn't such a bad idea after all. It wasn't such a bad idea after all. And Frank DeChico invited me to join his government relations public affairs firm a year ago. So now, when I'm not focused on the exciting part of promoting my book and trying to get it in front of as many women as possible, I am now a member of the Frank DeChico Associates firm, where we assist large companies, large and small, who want to build relationships or have special interests that they want to get in front of council members. So I'm able to use my many relationships that I cultivated during council and navigate them in a way that helps the firm advance interests of our clients.
And I appreciate hearing that, throughout what you've been talking about, you're taking your personal experiences, translating them into something that you can impact change, right? So
Yes.
talking about, you needed to watch those things growing up around food, reading something, getting some data and evidence, and then being able to impact a city of 1.3 billion people around their health.
Yes, because data, we can't deny data, research, mapping, and science. We can have opinions about other things, but when it comes to data, it is or it isn't. And when you can show the data and the research, that can drive and inform legislation that impacts and changes people's lives.
Right. So with your ability to weave all of those parts together, can you talk to me a little bit about what you think the public sector, nonprofit sector, academia, health systems, what could those sectors do more collaboratively in your view, to work better for Philadelphians?
Well, if we had to ID 1 or 2 top priority considerations of our current mayor, she's made crime a priority. And I want to seize the moment to applaud her for that. She's been unapologetic about it, and she's a get stuff done kind of woman, right? And she recruited a police commissioner who shares that philosophy, and they understand that they cannot do it alone. In fact, there's very little you can do in running America's 5th largest city and do it alone. It really does take partners around the table, each who come with a role towards the common goal. So let's look at youth violent crime. It's going to take the school district for sure. It's going to take the police department. It's going to take DHS, who for a long time and still may be operating, managing after school programming. We have to have safe, constructive places for young people to go from 3 to 7. Right? If we don't, then the statistics will tell us what happens when we don't have those safe havens for children. The business community can have a role. During school district superintendent, Dr. Constance Clayton, she had a program whose name escapes me now, but it required corporate Philadelphia to link up with the school district and create opportunities for our young people to be placed in corporate Philadelphia and nonprofits so that they can see early what the opportunities are in terms of building a career. It requires first of all, it requires a committed chamber business community to be committed to leadership at the business community, which in all of the chambers, African American Chamber, Greater Philadelphia Chamber, the Spanish American Chamber, all the leaders of those groups to understand its value and then be committed to recruiting members of their business community to commit to have young people placed in those sectors.
Right.
Imagine it would just give so much hope in exponential numbers to young people because they can see what's possible. And I would love, it would take having a cadre of staff, professional staff, to manage that type of initiative. The foundation community could pay for that, in my opinion, right? There's a role for all of them. If there was one area, it would be youth development, because if we don't get it right, these same youth are going to be making decisions or not about those of us who hopefully become seniors and making the investment on the front end. In fact, Jesse Jackson said, you can pay for it on the front end or you're going to pay for it on the back end. Either way, we're paying. So to the extent that we make the investment from 6th grade to 12th grade, the Philadelphia is better served by making the investment in young people. That's the one area where and including that the value and beauty of entrepreneurship. Add that as an option as well, right? If we could craft, I hate to say task force, because too often task force results, documents end up on a shelf, right? But a strike force that could craft that type, who would get that? Estelle Richmond would understand what I'm talking about. She really could.
She's brilliant. So yes,
she is that. And to pull those different sectors together around the table and charge them with very specific tasks and roles, and then have periodic benchmark where you come back and you report back what the progress is. That's where I would encourage, that's where I would advocate for an investment. A chief youth development officer. How about that?
Yeah, I like that. So just wanted to, before we close out, can you please give us what you would say some of the wisest advice that you've ever received?
So here's what I know for sure. And one, it was a spark, it fueled my story.
Okay.
I experienced a very dark season for about 18 months, 2 years when I was in Philadelphia City Council. And that experience gave me a perspective that, but for that experience, I may not have.
Okay.
And it was one perspective it gave me was what my mother always told me, said that I didn't really understand what she meant until I had to go through this dark season. And that is, nothing good or bad lasts forever. Firestorms, and no one gets a pass at the hiccup, the heartbreak, the headache, the firestorm, the curveball. At some point in our career, we're all going to get sucker punched. And it's at that moment where we have to test what we're made of, and that will reveal itself in a number of ways. But it's realizing the one thing that this too shall pass. We just have to walk our way through it, right? Sometimes the only way out is through. And that's what I learned during that experience. So nothing good or bad lasts forever. Many times the only way out is always through. Thirdly, I had to recruit a brand new team on my campaign side. I had to let everybody go because one member of my team actually got me in hot water, along with my own poor judgment, because we all have to recognize we had a role in when stuff goes good or bad. We had a role in it, right? So I had to reckon with that as well. And I had to be open enough to build a new team. I had to build a new team quickly because 24 months later, I would be running for office again. So nothing good or bad lasts forever. Many times the only way out is through. And for me, faith, and we know that faith is the evidence of things hoped for and the presence of things not seen. And so I reread a couple of books about faith also during that firestorm. And I learned what I always knew, that there are two rules in life. The first rule is don't quit. Even when you're at your lowest. I woke up in a fetal position many, many days, but I had a daughter watching me and my mom was watching me. So I had to get through this. First rule was don't quit. And the second rule was to remember the first rule. Don't quit. And praise God, built a new team, crafted a strategy, came up with a marketing plan, a strategic plan for how I needed to raise $40,000 to pay my fines back, another $200,000 to get ready for a new campaign. And we executed every box. And at the end of the day, I got reelected, walked through that firestorm, got reelected, and won my 5th consecutive term. I could not lay down and have somebody else write the end of my story. Because at the end of the day, we're responsible for the final chapter and our script, the script for our story. I was not going to let the Enquirer or the Daily News be the final arbiter of my career. Surprised a whole lot of people. Some who took invisible steps backwards, and others who became angels and showed up because they knew my heart. They knew my heart.
Yeah.
Now, and the last thing I will say to that is how important it is that we be courageous enough to show our vulnerabilities.
Yeah. Yeah. And it is courageous. That is courageous. So I'm excited that there's a book that we can all read.
Yes.
Find out more, and this conversation doesn't have to end here. Can you talk a little bit and let us know when the book comes out? Tell us the name again and where we can get it.
Surely. And on that, again, I have to say thank you for allowing me to lift up this 300-page project. It took me 4 years to write those 300 pages. And then the last year, my editors and I edited that book 13 times. We had to go back and read 300 pages. I thought I would lose my mind. But we were seeking perfection, which is not attainable. So we had to make it as accurate as possible. It is titled Walking a Tightrope Backwards in High Heels. And it is about the complicated life of an elected official, a mother, and a wife, and how I tripped up and almost fell off the tightrope and had to figure out a way to pull myself back up after putting some strategies in place to regain my balance. So it is also about the tension and the sometimes unsteadiness that comes with managing a career and honoring my ambition while you seek to be an attentive helicopter mom and an attentive wife, and my failure in one of those areas that you'll have to read the book to find out. Okay. So it's a part political memoir, part political leadership manifesto, and it's a rally cry for women, for a world that isn't always built for us.
Right.
The double standards are real. We can't complain about it. We just have to be about it. The book speaks to resilience, what that looks like, what's required. The book speaks to acknowledging the stumble, being transparent about the mess up, okay? Because it's only after you fess up about the mess up can you move forward. And I was very, very transparent with that in chapter 12, which is titled When You Are the News.
Wow. Wow.
The
Wow.
chapter is called When You Are the
the
News. So I'm
I really did
thankful
this when
that
you said that.
on Wednesday, September the
Okay.
17th, will
Okay.
be the official launch of the book at the Philadelphia Free Library Foundation. Praise God for
Very nice.
Monique Pryor Moore, the president of the Philadelphia Free Library Foundation. 6:15 doors open. 7 o'clock will be the welcome by City Councilwoman Catherine Gilmore Richardson. And
Right.
then 7:05, Tamala Edwards of 6ABC will kick off with questions and answers.
Okay. We'll put all of that in the show notes so everyone can
Please, please. We
absolutely
want everyone to
appreciate.
register and be there. I have a
Okay.
story to tell and I have lessons to share.
You have more than a story to tell. I thank you for your vulnerability. Thank you for the lessons that you've learned. I know this book will be a blessing to many people who read it.
That's my prayer, that it will indeed be an inspiration. Thank you
Thank
so
you,
very
Councilwoman.
much.
Thank
Katrina
you.
Pratt, robot.
Thank you, Councilwoman.
All right, until next time.
Till next time. Take
All
care.
right then, bye-bye.